Hi, I'm Bethany Maddox Sands, and I'm out here in California with my friends from Tennis Warehouse doing a little racket testing. Now, this is a really big deal for professional players. We are so picky with the sticks that we use out on the court. Now, I've been with Babolat for a few years now, transitioned through a couple of their rackets with the Strike, the Pure Drive, now with the Arrow. So I'm looking for a little change. Going to be testing a bunch of rackets with my specs and off the shelf and let you guys know what I think about them. Now, all my Babolats have treated me well over the years. I've held a lot of trophies because of them, but I'm looking for a little bit of a change. The one I'm playing with right now is the Arrow, and it's spec'd out a little differently than what you guys are used to. I have a little bit more weight on it. I wanted to get a little bit more power. Now, what I loved about this racket was how great it felt on my forehand. I really felt I could get a heavy ball. I could get that cross-court angle. One of the things that I lost with it, however, was my backhand down the line. I don't think I quite realized how important that shot was to me until I started breaking down some of my matches on video. Now, volleys, really important for me to stay confident on that. And with the increased weight, as much as I liked that on the baseline, I felt a little bit slow at the net. And trust me, that is one thing I cannot afford to feel, is slow at the net. That's one of my biggest strengths. So out of the rackets I'm trying today, I'm lightening them all up a little bit. Again, the feeling on this racket was great. When you hit it in the center of the strings, it really feels powerful. I'm gonna be testing a few rackets that have a little bit less power, but a little bit more control, and see where my precision stands and how that feels in my hand. Again, I'm pretty open right now, and this is a big deal. Switching rackets, again, I've only played with this for a couple years, played with the Pure Strike before this. Love that. That's a little bit more for flattening out shots. I felt great, but I couldn't quite get the topspin I wanted. I wanted those heavy balls, those heavy lobs going over the net players. I wanted those dipping shots at the volleyers, and I got that with this. I didn't get that with the Strike, so that's one of the reasons why I actually switched to this racket. Now, before that, the OG Pure Drive felt great. I felt like it was super maneuverable. Loved that on my volleys, loved it on my serve. And really what I'm looking for today is an all-around racket. I don't want to start choosing favorite children on my strokes. I don't want to say, oh, I feel great on the forehand, but I lost my backhand. Or I feel great on the serve, but no maneuverability on the volleys. I'm really looking for a racket that feels great with all my shots. So let's see what Tennis Warehouse got for me today. So before I start talking about which rackets I'm testing out, I want to walk you through a little bit how I test rackets. For the most part, I like someone handing me the racket, not knowing much about it, and then going out and playing and seeing what my initial thoughts are. A big thing that I'm looking for is the shape of the handle. I know where my grips are, I know what I want to feel, and the size and the shape really help me feel where my racket face is pointed. And that's important for me. So some of the circular grips on rackets, I lose my space a little bit. So when I'm testing all these rackets, I actually in the end up customizing my handle for the shape that I like the best, so that I know where I am in space and I know where my racket face is pointing. But I'm gonna give you a little bit feedback on my specs and the specs off the wall. So the first racket that I have in my hand right here is the new Solinco. And this one felt great power. I thought when I was hitting my ground strokes, it was very maneuverable, felt a little bit like my old Babolat Pure Drive. So if you kind of liked that older one, this gave me a little reminiscent feeling of that. But I liked it on my volleys. This one, we chopped it a little bit, but in my hand, it felt a little long. So even though it's my specs, my weight, my balance, I felt like this was still a little bit heavy for what I wanted to. I wanted to really get around the ball quick. I wanted to be ready for those shots that I hit hard at a net player and they reflex them back. I wanted to be able to be prepared for those. And with this one, I still felt like there was a little bit of leg time. Now I got great power with it. So here's the thing, I'm trying to balance power with control. I don't want to lose too much power because then my opponent is making me move and making me work hard. And sometimes it's a little deceptive when you play with a racket that has a lot of control. You feel like you're ripping the ball, you might be hitting the center of the strings, it feels great, but you really aren't doing anything to your opponent. So another key thing when I'm testing rackets is I'm getting feedback from my hitting partner or my coach on how my ball feels to them. So I'm taking into consideration what the racket feels like, and then do they feel under pressure? Do they feel like it's coming fast? Does it look like I'm putting a lot of effort into the ball so they're prepared for it, or does it look easy? So I'm really taking a lot of different feedback. But back to the Solinco, this one felt great in the hand, still a little bit heavy for what I wanted. Liked it on volleys, maneuverable, serve felt great. I think I just want to go a little bit lighter than this, but overall, great stick. Next stick I'm testing out is the Yonex V-Core Pro. Now, I haven't hit a lot with the Yonex. This is one racket that I haven't really played with throughout my career. I've been with Wilson, I've been with Vokal, I've been with Babolat, I've been with a lot of different racket companies, but Yonex is one that I haven't really used a ton. However, this one felt great in the hand. It's a little bit more flexible, and I feel like on my ground strokes, you feel it a little bit more. And if you can get used to that feeling, you get a lot of pop and power off this. It feels really clean. You hit the center of the strings, and it feels like your ball has layers going across the court. I liked it at the net. I thought this one was more maneuverable than past Yonex rackets that I've tried. Again, volleys are really important for me. That's one of my I'm not taking any consideration. If I don't feel good at the net, the racket is on the side already. So this one passed that test, felt good at the net. However, the Yonex, I've always felt like on the serve, I lose a little bit of power. I don't know if it's the racket's shape. I try not to dig too much into those details. I'm just going a lot on feel. I felt my coach gave me a lot of great feedback on this. He felt like I was hitting a heavy ball. It looked like I was hitting clean. It was easy to hit. And that's a big part of it. I don't know if a lot of people take that into consideration. If your opponent looks like they're hitting the ball easy, you assume that the ball's not coming that fast. So that's something that I almost like to take into consideration. Whereas if you see someone out there just working really hard to hit the ball, you're actually expecting a fastball and you're ready for it more. So I actually want a racket that is easy, one, for me to hit, but also looks easy to my opponent. This one I felt like was pretty accurate. When I had my spots and my targets, I was able to hit them. I think you hit a little bit flatter with this. So if you're a flat player, this is going to be a racket for you. Now, if you're looking to get those heavy topspin forehand, you want to play like Rafa, don't pick up the Yonex. It's not your strings. But overall, felt good in the hand. Again, and when I say good in the hand, if there's just something about picking up a racket, you kind of get a feel for it just like this, looking down at it. It seems kind of odd, but I want to actually aesthetically sort of like the shape and the feel. It's not just about the color or anything like that, but that plays a part in how you feel the racket going through the ball. So I take everything into consideration. This is getting pretty detailed. Again, if you just like the purple and green teal, go for it. It's got this 90s retro feel right here. But overall, the Yonex felt like a super solid racket, gives you a good power, feels clean, nice on the arm, just not for your spin players. Next up is the Tecnifibre T-Fight. Now, I got a little inspiration playing with Iga Swiatek. This is not her racket she's playing with, but I wanted to give the Tecnifibre sticks a shot. I haven't really played much with them, so it was nice getting on the court with it. I felt like it had a lot of power. To me, I felt like my ball was sailing a little bit. Again, this is with my specs, my weight, my balance, my handle, and I still felt I was flying a little bit. And one of the things, again, when I'm testing rackets, is I want to go with my natural stroke and see where my ball ends up going. I don't want to start making adjustments to this because I feel like I'm in a place where I'm good enough that I can adjust and get the ball in if I need to be. But I want to be the most natural feeling stroke and see where my ball ends up. And with this one, my balls were sailing long a little bit. I loved it on the forehand, didn't love it on the backhand. So in this situation, I feel like I'm picking a little bit of a favorite. Even though my game, I feel really dynamic running around my forehand, I still want that backhand down the line. Now at the net, it felt pretty maneuverable, but again, I felt like I was having a little trouble controlling the ball. And for me, if you want power, this is definitely a racket for you to try. For me, I want a little bit more control. I want to be able to hit those soft touch volleys at the same time as hitting out on the ball. But again, I was getting great feedback from the coach I was hitting with, saying I was getting a lot of power. I was just hitting long. So when I'm breaking down some of my testing performances, I'm looking at where my mistakes are and where my winners are. Am I accurate with my angles? Am I accurate up the middle? Is it flat? Is it going low over the net? This one I was able to get a little bit more spin, still not like the Aero. The Aero is probably the best racket that you can get if you want to hit really high and heavy and get a lot of power. Your Aero is still going to be your best bet, but this one offered a little bit more power and spin than, for example, the Yonex. So if you're looking for that middle play, this is definitely a racket for you to try. Got the Wilson Blade 98 in my hand next, and I've played a decent amount with Wilsons in my career. And one of my thoughts on this was it really helped a lot of players that had long, flat strokes. A lot of power players play with the Wilson, and I feel like if you time the ball well and you have that smooth stroke that just goes through to your target, think Vidova, think Lindsay Davenport, I felt like they all just hit their targets really well and the Wilson racket fit with them. Now this newest blade, I feel like they added a little bit more flex, so I'm able to get a little bit more spin, which is what I want. I like to flatten the ball out, but that's not how I play. I want to be able to hit those dipping shots. I want the angles and I want that high heavy ball. And I felt like usually with Wilson's, I couldn't get everything I wanted, but they feel so good at contact. They feel like a really firm racket, good in the hand, easy on the arm. And this new blade is offering me a little bit more maneuverability. I've always felt like Wilson's felt great at net. They were a firm, crisp volley, again, which is my #1 priority. How do they feel on my volleys? This is passing the test. Serve felt super accurate. This is another one where I had to find the right contact because it's so different from the Babolat. So if you're switching racket, if you're say with Babolat or with the Onyx, switching to the Wilson, you're gonna struggle to find that contact point initially, but don't give up. Don't just say, hey, this racket isn't for me. Hit a few more balls because once you find that contact point, it's a little bit more out in front. I felt with the Babolat, I could go up a little bit more and it was back a little bit. The Wilsons, you wanna get that in front. You wanna get that body weight forward, hitting the ball in front. And once you start finding that contact, the Wilsons really start feeling great. So this is one of my front runners. I really liked how this felt. I felt like it helped my backhand, helped my forehand. I could slice with it, hit serves, get back for overheads. It was quick. Checking all my boxes basically. So Wilson Blade 98, you're a front runner for me right now. So last but not least, I have the new head prototype that isn't even named yet. Just says you got this on the side, working title in progress, but I'm really loving this racket. So look at the head shape. That's way different from what most of the head rackets look like. It's getting a little bit wider out here, a little bit more of that Yonex, maybe the old school Wilson sledgehammer feel, and then narrowing a little bit here. But this racket felt so maneuverable out on the court, and I love that. For me as a player, again, I want all those volleys. I want to be able to hit drop shots. I want to be able to serve and volley and hit all these cool shots out of the corners. And for that, I needed to lighten up my racket, which I did with this, and I need a racket that goes fast through the ball, which this did. Now, talking with my coach, I was still getting a lot of power, I was getting a lot of spin, and I actually think for the first 30 minutes, I didn't miss one return with this racket. So I'm gonna knock on wood on that. I doubt I can keep that stat up, but for the most part, this racket is fitting my game really well. Again, going back to what I'm looking for in a racket, I want my natural strokes. I'm thinking back to even how I hit the ball when I was a kid. That's the racket that I want to own. That's the racket that I'm gonna ultimately play my best tennis under pressure with. So this one, loving it at the net. A lot of times when I'm testing out volleys, I want that firm, crisp, put away shot, but I also want that reflex ball. And I think a good one to test that is when you get those body shots quick. Which one, do you hit a forehand grip? Do you hit a backhand grip? Are you able to switch back and forth? I think that's a big key for me picking out a racket that I love. So it's not just about those powerful, crisp shots with that first volley when you're coming in, but when you're close to net and you got to reflex really quick. If you need a drop shot, if you need to take pace off. And I really felt like this head prototype was giving me all of that. So I'm actually really excited to keep hitting with this. I thought it was so maneuverable at the net. I was getting good pop on my serve. One thing I look for on my serve with all these rackets is the differential between slice and kicks. Am I getting good spin? Do they feel better when I hit flat balls? How accurate am I? One thing I'll look for on my kick serve is, can I control the depth? Every once in a while, I want to hit a really short kick. If someone's standing pretty far in, I want to bring them in even further and get them caught up here. Which rackets are giving me that best control? And I felt like this head really was giving me that. So overall, I know I was saying the Wilson was a front runner, but I think this head prototype is another front runner. Loving the feel. Now my Babs and I have had a 9-year relationship, but I'm testing out a few other options, along with a few more Babolats. I'm not picking a winner today. I know you guys were looking for that, but you're gonna have to stay tuned. This testing is gonna take me well into the off season, but don't worry, I will pick a clear winner and it will be amazing, and I will let you guys know which one I choose. But for now, catch me in my Babolat.